Hello and welcome back to another episode of Intelligentlemen. I am your host, Milt Walker, and I want to just take this time to thank you and show gratitude for everybody who's supporting the stream and the podcast. I really appreciate you, and I hope that you gain something positive from it. Just know that if it's something positive, it was already here before me, and it comes from the source. And if it's anything negative, then that is through my own fault. And I just want to say that today this episode, I wanted to talk about mental health for men in particular, but us as a Black community, some of the things we got to look at and some of the things we need to start doing to normalize being healthy mentally. A lot of people have been talking about this. A lot of people have been pushing this. So I know I'm not the first and I won't be the last. And so I just want to be one of the voices that speak for those who feel like they can't speak for themselves. There was a time in my life personally where I felt that, I was going through some things. I didn't really know what was going to happen. I didn't really know. I felt like I was at the end of my, I don't want to say wits, but I did. I felt like I was at the end of my wits, and, I didn't know where to turn. But it was at that point in my life where I changed the way that I thought about things. And, with that being said, we all have those moments. We all go through the ups and downs of life. No one is exempt, no matter what you may have materially. So I just want to say that we should always be kind to each other. We should always respect each other. We should always strive to be the best version of ourselves so that we can be a beacon of light to others who may be on the same path but may not know where they're going. And so, in that moment, I kind of had an epiphany. I returned to the root of who I was as a person and who I wanted to be, which was someone to help and to shine positivity out into the world, to learn all that I could for those specific purposes. And so, I cried out to God. I asked God, I said, please just give me the ability to take care of my daughter, to be a good father to her, and to help people. And that was it. It was simple. It was a very simple cry, and it was a very simple prayer, but it was very powerful in that moment. And I never looked back. So ever since then, it showed me something. It showed me that no matter how dark times may get, they will get better if you hold on and you remain positive, right? Because a lot of people, when they're in that situation, they may not know what to do and they may respond negatively. And when I say a lot of people, I include myself, because I am by no measure exempt from the trials and tribulations of human beings. So, I know that we go through those things sometimes, and I know that they have a very profound impact on us. And but I also know that if you remain positive and you move through it, whatever it is, whether it's facing homelessness, whether it's facing, uh, loss of, any type of possessions or loss of, people in your life or whatever it may be, um, if you hold on and stay positive, you'll make it through. And also, you may gain some insight into life, right? Um, I'll also share this about me back when I was in elementary school. I used to, me and my older brother, um, my family, we used to have to take care of my uncle who was paralyzed from the neck down, and he was on a respirator machine, and so we had to help him with all of the things that comes with for a person not being able to do for themselves. And as a child, I used to find myself impatient with it sometimes, but through the love that I felt for my family, for my uncle, I always wanted to help. It was never a time I didn't want to help, but I would sometimes feel like, oh, I want to go outside and play, you know, and it was the beginning, right? The beginning of awakening to empathy and being able to look at someone else's situation and say, I may not know exactly how they feel, but I know that I want to help them in any way that I can to make it through whatever they may be going through, whether it's just a smile or whether it's just a kind word or whether it's helping them in some way, shape, or form. And so, that has played a major part in how I frame the way that I look at people, right? Um, because it was a lot. I mean, it was over a course of years where we had to help, and my grandmother was taking care of him the most because she was there. She was retired, and so she was there pretty much all the time, and she had to be. And this weighed heavily on my uncle mentally, which kind of brings us back to our topic. But it weighed heavily on him mentally. So I would be there as a young child, sitting there watching TV with my uncle. He had an extensive VHS cassette tape collection, all the Bonds, all the old school movies, Black Heroes and all kinds of stuff. So we would say, it would be kind of random. He would just say, "Hey, pop this tape in, let's watch this." And so we'd sit there and we watch it, and it was a beautiful thing thinking back because it was something I was able to share with him before he passed. And so we'd be watching these things together, and I would have questions because I've always been a very inquisitive person, ever since a child, and so I would always ask questions about life, about how he felt about things, you know. And we would get into conversations, and it was very hard for him to talk. He had to talk through his trachea, which was a tube in his throat that led down to his airways so that he could breathe, and he could be on his respirator machine when he needed to be. So it was labored. It was a labored pain for him to talk. So it taught me how to value when people were trying to tell me something, right? So it grew my listening skills. It grew my ability to listen because I had to be patient. I had to wait for him to take those breaths and be able to tell me whatever it was that he was trying to get out to me. And now this was at a very young age. So I was exposed to this at a young age. It doesn't mean that I just mastered it at that time, but I was exposed to it at a young age. So it was something I had to learn to practice throughout my life. And I started very, very young. And so, one of the things he used to say when he was feeling the weight of the situation and the life that we were living and how, everybody was taking care of him and so on and so forth. Some of the things he would say would be, he's just tired, and I bring this up because, again, talking about mental health in our communities, Sometimes it's hard to reach out and say, you know what, I'm so tired. I'm just mentally drained. I'm so drained. I feel like I'm a burden to everybody. I feel like I'm not doing my part. I feel like, and that's where a lot of these negative self-thoughts come from within us, is feeling inadequate in some way, right? We feel like we're not doing something. And so we feel like we're not measuring up to other people's standards or to our own standards, right? And so those things can have a negative impact on us, right? But one thing he taught me, he never dwelled on it for long. He never dwelled on it for long, but he would say it when he needed to say it, and he would continue. He would go back to joking and trying to make you laugh, and being the charismatic person that he was. Um, and anybody who's strong can attest to this, that when you lose the ability to be that strong person for other people, it really does affect you. I've talked to numerous friends of mine who feel the same way, numerous strangers who have expressed those same thoughts, and I myself, I share that same thought, in the sense that I know that it can weigh heavily on you. And so that's some of the things that we're going to be talking about today. You have to express these things. You know, you have to express these things because you got to understand you are created for greatness. You are created for greatness. You're created to do great things, and it's not always going to look like the same thing that somebody else did that looks great. Your great thing might be raising your kids. Your great thing might be being a supportive spouse. Your great thing might be being a podcaster, right? I'm not saying I'm great. I'm just saying, but that could be it. So one thing I always try to teach my daughter, and she's 12 now, I always try to teach her is never close yourself off to the possibilities of who you could be. Don't ever say, well, I'm good at this, so this is what I want to do, right? And I don't want to do anything else. I always tell them, and I tell other children and other people who I find myself in that situation, don't just settle for that. You can be that and much more. And you'll never know how much greater you can be unless you experience life. And we talked about this in one of our past podcasts where, I kind of mentioned that and I spoke about that a little bit. But this is in the sense of mental health, just really kind of illustrating how some of these things can keep you from that greatness, if you allow it, right? Now, for some people, and we want to make sure we set the record straight, for some people, it's not that easy, right? For some people, it's something that is definitely harder to do than others, right? And it may be some kind of physical or chemical reason for that, right? And so we always have to take that in consideration, and so what that means is you never want to make someone feel bad for feeling bad, right? We're all human. We have emotions. We are supposed to feel those emotions. One of those emotions is sadness. And so if someone tells you they're never going to feel sadness, then they're essentially telling you they're never going to live, right? They're never going to go out and experience. They want to keep themselves in one little space where they're going to be happy. But the irony of that is, you'll find is that as time goes by, that itself is going to make you sad, right? When you close yourself off, because you're not going to feel that connection with the rest of the universe. So you have to take that into consideration too. So just keep in mind that you are created for greatness. This goes out to everybody. You are created to be great. Love yourself. Love others. Be kind to yourself and be kind to others. Setbacks. We're all going to have setbacks, but those setbacks can be accompanied with comebacks. If, again, you stay positive, you make it through it. And is staying positive a prerequisite? No, because you can make it through it in a negative space, but what staying positive does for you, it allows you to stay open to learning whatever it is, the lesson that you need to learn from that situation, to either make sure you don't go through it again, or to make it easier if you ever have to go through that situation again, right? Say for instance, that particular situation I spoke about with myself, when my uncle passed, after having those conversations and dealings with him, I knew that he was better off, in a better place, mentally, physically, spiritually. He no longer had to worry about what a burden he was. He no longer had to worry about my grandmother being physically, burdened by, the literal weight of having to take care of him, right? He no longer had to, feel that tired pain of, you know, um, just not being able to do the things that he felt like he wanted to do. But he had an impact, right? So it wasn't that he wasn't having any impact, because he did. He had it on me, he had it on my brother, he had it on his family, right? His children, right? My cousins, they grew up to be great. And so, I mean, sometimes you don't see it, but that's okay. That's okay. Um, Not everything of value will you see in your lifetime, right? This goes back to the ego versus spiritual conversation, right? If you look at yourself as connected, then you don't see death the same way. Because once you understand the universal principle that energy is not created, it is only transformed and transferred, then you know that you're going to live forever. And it may not be in the same way that you're accustomed to living, but you will live forever as what made you who you were, right? And so with that being said, that's what's important. That's why the value is added into the positive things that you do. That's why, because it's going to live, that energy that you create is going to live on, and when I say create, I don't mean create in the sense that it was there before you. I mean create as far as directing it towards whoever or whatever you direct it towards, right? It could be towards yourself, what they call self-love, right? That's directing positive energy towards yourself. So yeah, you're gonna have those setbacks, but you can come back from that, right? You can come back from that stronger. You can come back from that wiser, and you can make the best out of a situation that may not have been the most ideal situation. With that being said, seeking help is strength. Don't be afraid to seek help. Don't be afraid to open yourself up to receiving help from others, right? Now, from our past podcasts, you know that you have to think about who you're receiving that help from, right? You don't want to just take help from anybody, because not everybody is for you, right? Or for us, right? And so you want to make sure that you're opening yourself up to take help from the people who care about you the most, right? Even in talking about mental health, that includes the mental health professionals, right? The ones that are always advocating for us to to do these things for ourselves, and to help us see the positive in life, right? Opening up to them as well. Professional help is okay. I heard this saying lately, when you want something done right, you hire professionals, right? So if you're in a situation where nobody around you can really help you in that situation, then you may need to seek professional help. because sometimes it's like that. Sometimes it is like that, right? Sometimes you need somebody who knows the ins and outs, who has the experience to help you through whatever you need to get through, right? And you need to make that a priority. You need to make your mental health a priority because your happiness is essential. You can't go out and be a positive influence on the world when you are not happy with yourself, when you are not prioritizing your mental health. That doesn't mean that you won't feel sadness again, and it doesn't mean that you won't feel these other emotions like anger and so on and so forth. That's not what that means. But it just means that you understand that that those feelings are for you to experience and not necessarily to act upon, right? um you know that is my thought on that. You don't necessarily have to act upon every emotion that you have, right? um and your happiness is essential, meaning you have to be happy, right? For yourself. You have to be happy within yourself. Don't look for your happiness outside. That's what essential means. Essential means it's the basics, right? And we all know the basics is all inside of you, whether it's health care or whether it's mental health. The basics are inside of you. It starts with you. It starts with your habits, with your thoughts, with your words, with your actions, right? With your behaviors, with your patterns, right? Your patterns that turn into behaviors, right? And so that's what it starts with. So if you can start becoming aware of that, then you can start to mold yourself and take control over the things that you need to take control over to make your happiness your priority. And I encourage that to everybody. Everybody's talking about law of attraction, right? So how does this tie into it? Your mental health directly ties into that law of attraction, because the founding principle for that law is that you are attracting what you are, right? So what you think, you are attracting, right? What you say, you are attracting. What you are doing, you are attracting. So if you are thinking, saying, and doing negative things about yourself, then you're going to attract negative things, right? And you're going to start to feel yourself kind of lose control over certain situations where your emotions may start expressing themselves, right? It's something that I look at myself, and I try to fine tune, and I'm working on to make sure that my responses to my emotions are in line with who I want to be as a person, or who I am, right? Because I want that to be clear. I want that to be very clear, and I want that, and I want to be, I want to heal from any traumas and anything in my past, in my childhood. And everybody has varying degrees of these things. And so I want to make sure that, I'm healed from that, so that, I can be a better person. One of the things that a lot of people don't know about me is, my father raised me. Everybody likes to talk, and this is tying into the black men mental health. A lot of people like to talk about how, the status quo is the man leaving the child and so on and so forth. Look, that's not my experience. My dad has been there ever since we were born. My mom left when I was young, and I didn't see her at all anymore, right? And with that, came some residual, right? And eventually, a lot. And I'll say this: there was a long time where I wanted to reach out and I wanted to connect with her, but I didn't, and I always kind of made it where I felt like she should reach out to me, right? But I ended up forgiving her, right? And saying, well, whatever it was, I forgive her for that. She's still my mother. I still love her. Unfortunately, I never got a chance to say that to her because I found out that she had passed away before I had the opportunity to say that. And I'm saying that to say this. People, we have to really assess what's important to us. Like it's not about, if you can get that ego in check. And of course I was young, and so this had a lasting effect on me, but it's my responsibility to work on that, right? Like, people are responsible for what they do, but I'm responsible for what I do as well. And so, I did have peace knowing that I felt that way, but I didn't have peace knowing that I couldn't say it to her to try to bring her peace, right? Because again, ultimately, that's what I want. I don't want to be, I want to help people. So that's ultimately my goal in anything that I do. And we need to hear that support, right? As Black men, we need to hear support from our women, from our friends, from our partners, whatever. We want to hear that support and appreciation, and we want to know that, hey, you got our back, just like we got yours, right? Um, and you got to do what's best for you. You got to do what's best for you. So if a situation is not what's best for you, then sometimes you may need to take yourself out. Sometimes you might have to, just to gain perspective. And sometimes, you may have to let it go. You never know. But when it is affecting your mental health, then that is a clear sign that it's something that you're going to have to either adjust within yourself or adjust outside, right? Meaning, because you can't control anything outside of yourself, any person outside of yourself. And so that means that you have to either let it go or you have to be at peace with it, right? So that's what you have to do. And again, if you need help, seek help from those around you who love you or from a professional who can help you. And don't hide your express. Like, don't try to just hide how you feel, because that never works. It never works. It always creeps to the surface. No matter how good you may feel you are at hiding those things, your emotions, it always comes out, and it could hurt people. And that's why they say, hurt people. But we've all been hurt in some way. So it's not that hurt people. It's more so that, when you're hurt and you're unable to express that in a positive way or in a productive way, then you hurt people. That's what it is. So let's get a little more detailed in the way that we talk about these things, because just using it in the meme language is not really it's not going to address everybody at all times. Because I ain't hurt, because you got people in denial, you got people at all levels of this, right? And so that's what I wanted to talk about, and I'm not going to take up too much time talking about this, because I am in no way an expert or a doctor. I do speak with people who know about these things, and I do research these things myself, but I am no way a professional. So definitely, if you feel in any way like you want to hurt yourself, or that you want to hurt others, or that you're overwhelmed, or whatever the case may be, reach out, seek help. And remember, you can always get at me on Facebook, Intelligentleman, or you can, if you're listening to this on Anchor or any one of those platforms, you can go back to the Anchor page and you can actually send me a message. And if it's something that you want me to put out there, shout out or whatnot, then let me know. And until then, thank you all for listening, and thank you all for being a part of this, what I'm trying to do. And I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye.